What's up, baby? Welcome to the Re-Frag. This is a show where we talk about esports and we give our hottest takes. Well, I do. Scooter's here to make sure I calm the fuck down every time I do this shit. And today we'll be talking about Valorant because a lot of things have happened this past week in Valorant. Like, for example, Masters 2 in Reykjavik.
Yep.
Sens being signed, as well as finding out who the best region is in Valorant. And it's not EU, baby. It's not EU.
EU sadly going home.
EU is definitely going home. So yeah. So we're gonna start off with talking about Masters 2. And outside of the technical issues, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a fantastic display of all the regions. And on top of that, a lot of personalities from all the regions were being displayed. But Iceland ended with Sentinels not dropping a map. The closest was like Fnatic taking them to overtime, but they still won 3-0. How do you feel about that?
Man, I expected that to be a lot closer. Fnatic had to look solid throughout, like especially against like Liquid, and I don't know. I mean, it is a 3-0, like it is the grand final. At least we got to see 3 maps. That's the advantage of a best 5 series. But man, I expected it to be at least like a 3-2 for somebody.
Man, it was kind of like. That was the most competitive match outside of the first round, and it was kind of sad because when you got to lowers bracket, like it was all like washes up until like maybe V1 and New Turn.
And that's the thing. Fnatic were on that such huge momentum that I thought it would be so much closer, but they just couldn't pull it out.
Yeah, Bolster can sneak one by, and I guess Shazam manages to win another Masters event. And honestly, they didn't drop a map. They looked impressive. Everybody on that team looked amazing. Sick was popping off finally after the second round. Shazam had his crazy moments in that final grand finals, and like it's just, and Tens is the MVP, and we have to talk about Tens, right? Tens literally showed up. And he was like, hey, land doesn't bother me. And he doesn't need to switch his mice or his sensitivity every 10 seconds. Like, it's crazy. So, like, tell me, what do you think about Tens? Because you come from a CSGO background, and you know a little bit more about Tens than I do in terms of, like, his FPS background.
So, like everybody knows, Tens is always, doesn't matter what he's playing. He could be playing Roblox. His aim is insane. And he dropped, I think it was a 30 bomb every game against Fnatic, bar one, where I think he was 28 kills. I think he was 2 kills off of another 30 bomb. And come on, I mean, at that point, he deserves the trophy. Like, they won that from his performance alone. And then Shazam stepped up as well. And, it's, you can't really take it away from Sentinels when they're firing on all cylinders. Like, they just looked like the better team.
They looked unbeatable, but there was a lot of murmurs that like, hey, maybe they're not the best team, right? They're just the best team in that tournament. Maybe like the more EU teams are stronger, and they talked about it. Shazam has talked about how the EU teams were like they're overall stronger than NA, and I'm quite interested because we didn't get to see FPX play, we didn't get to see Gambit play or any of the CIS teams. We didn't get to see even like G2 play with Mixwell, because Mixwell is sick too. He has an amazing CSGO background. But to circle back to Tens, like, we know that he has a history of like just really cracking mentally under pressure. But he's a little older now. He's a little more mature, and it seems like with age comes with clearly a ton of maturity and a ton of mental strength. This guy's the MVP. If there had to be an MVP of this tournament, this guy had to be it, because he was always top fragging or near top fragging on every map on his team, and no one can control him. He's the fastest aimer of all time in this game at the moment. And then the biggest talk about Tens is that buyout, right? Did they finally bought him out? Sentinels finally bought him out from C9. Now my issue is like, they didn't, like, the team didn't know until after Reykjavik. But you mentioned to me privately about under the table deals. Tell me more about that, because how does that work? Like, how do you just not tell your team that you signed the best player in the world of Valorant under the table. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, so for those of you, this is our first official episode, our first pilot episode. We did record a little teaser just to show a couple of people, and we had talked about the fact that I had personally thought tens had already been bought out. The plans were already set in stone under the table, and looks like I was pretty correct. They bought him out for 1.25 million.
He's not only the most expensive player in Valorant, he's one of the most expensive contracts in esports ever.
He's a good player, but he's also a content creator, and he has that celebrity status. And it would have been dumb of Sentinels not to buy him out. They could not afford to not buy him out at this point.
Really?
Well, it's one of those things. They'd be wasting their money if they didn't buy him out.
Really? You think 1.25 million is worth it for tens?
I think they'll make it back pretty quick, especially if they win all the Valorant. Because here's the thing: if they go on a heater with him and win out the next couple of tourneys, sponsors, the winnings, it'll all pay itself out.
Like, for a lot of people who don't know, Tens' value isn't the fact that he's the best player in the world. That just made it more like, that just pushed it over the million. But what makes Tens super valuable is that he's an influencer, and that means Sentinels can leverage his analytics to sponsors to get more money, and he brings a lot of value because he's super family friendly. He's very personable. He's just really, he's just like, if you watch a 10 stream, you're like, wow, I feel like he's just so down to earth. You feel really attached to him, and that's why he gets like 10,000 viewers like every stream, and that's where his most of his value comes from. They're gonna make that money back fairly quickly if this Sentinel dominance keeps happening.
Yeah, and that's the big thing we gotta look for. Like, obviously, like you said, Gambit and FPX weren't able to make it, and it's one of those things, would that have made a difference overall in Masters? And as we see more international play, is it going to make a difference? Are Sentinels going to be the dominant team? Is it going to be an NA supremacy? You don't know. Like, EU could come out of nowhere. Hell, even Korea or Brazil might find a powerhouse team. And who knows? We might see some huge roster changes after this that, it's like you were telling me, it's rumored Boaster, he's going to be leaving Fnatic.
He might be leaving Fnatic. Yeah, people were trying to buy him out because his strats were insane. He's one of the best in-game leaders in the world, second to Shazam, clearly, right? So it's like, if Europe wants to make a powerhouse and make a run for it, like, he should be the guy. Because remember, his history is incredible. This guy goes unsponsored in Valorant with Summon FC, and he does so well with Summon FC. Fnatic picks him up, and they drop two of his teammates and pick up Durka and I think another European player, but that's not native to Britain. So it was like, it's insane. And then they literally do amazing. They got second place at Masters. And they beat so many other teams but Sentinel.
Yeah, that's definitely not something to look over. Like, second place is still, the first international event, that is not something to look at like lightly.
The thing about this is, like, talking about contracts and buying them out. Like I overheard how, like, back in the day, CSGO contracts were like basically contract jails, and old esports teams would try to sign you early on when you're 18, 19, just barely legal, and then trick you into like trapping you into this like stupid contract. And you have experience because you've edited for so many CSGO teams. You've been basically just in that CSGO scene. Like, when Sean Garrett talked about contract jail, and he talked about how, like, at the time Tens couldn't get out because he signed a shitty contract when he was like 17, 18. Like, how do you feel? Should there be, when you're up until you're 19 or 20, should there be some like guardian or lawyer to look over your contract? Because I think in sports there is, right? There's an agent that looks over your contract, but like when you're 17 and you're fresh and C9 wants to like sign you, like, there's no agency to protect you, right?
Yeah, and that's the big thing. Like, it is tough because we've seen a lot of players, and probably in every game, where they don't want to play anymore, or the team wants to drop them, but they're still under contract jail, and they sit on the bench but no plans of actually bringing them in again, and they're just stuck. All they're forced to do is stream and wait for a team to maybe pay their buyout. And the thing is, if it's a big org and they're sponsors, and they, let's say they have big sponsors, that adds on and adds on and adds on, and it could be too much. This player might be supposed to be tier 1, maybe he's performing like tier 2, and a team wants to pick him up for a tier 2. No way is a tier 2 team going to be able to afford to buy him out now, because he's under a tier 1 a tier 1 contract. Now he's stuck. And that's the thing. That's what we saw with Tense. Tense originally stuck under Cloud9. Yeah. And he sat streaming, and it's tough because Cloud9 have to, it's a business side of things where it's like Cloud9 have to get their money out, and it's on both parties. Yeah. Cloud9 are a little at fault for making the contract so long with somebody so young. I do think it needs to be changed. But at the same time, like you said, I do think there needs to be something in place for young players to have somebody look over their shoulder, almost as a guardian roundtable, where even if it's older players, and older players can be like, oh, you don't want this on your contract. And then the lawyers come in and have a look at it as well and go, yeah, he's right. You don't want that. And that's the thing. Don't get excited. And that's the thing. People will get excited when they get their first esports contract or first tier 1 esports contract. They'll sign it instantly. They won't even read all the small print. And you have to. It sucks, but you have to. Especially when you're so excited to be like, oh my god, Cloud9. Like, I used to watch Cloud9. And if I was 18 and got offered the shittiest Cloud9 contract, I would take it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, you would take it. Because you when you're a kid and you're like, I can make a living from playing video games, like, you don't think about anything else. Your world is just that, right? And then like Jack Etienne comes in, he's like, I think I could make $1 million off this kid. And he's going to come in and snatch you and be like, hey, buddy, I got you. Here's a $30,000 contract a year. You can sign this and you'll be on Cloud9, and you'll take it. You'll take it because at the time, like, Jack Etienne sees you as like your potential, right? Yeah. And in the case of Tense, like it's a dirty side of business because G2 does this as well, right? They farm like players. They sell players to make more money, right? And that, unfortunately, that's just, it sucks. But like, I feel like
it's business.
Like, it's business, right? It's the dirtiest side of esports, really. Contracts and like how the back end money works. But,
yeah, and that like what you already covered, but that is on both parties. Like, we need to stop giving younger kids long-term contracts, but younger kids also need to be the ones to put their foot forward. You just have to, if you are young and wanting to get into esports, don't be afraid to fight back. Trust me, they want you. They don't want that contract. They want you. You do have pushing ability. Everybody has pushing ability when it comes to contract.
This is a really controversial subject, but I was watching, going through the YouTube Hive, right? And I got, shouts to this algorithm, but I got this clip of Sinatra, unfortunately, breaking down about Shazam's chat, harassing Shazam for playing with them. And it's a little controversial because the investigation with Sinatra hasn't ended yet.
Yeah.
At all. Like, it hasn't, right? Like, we don't know what's going on with it.
From my point of view, from a business point of view, from a chat point of view, from a fan point of view, I think Sinatra should have taken a much longer break. I understand video games are your life. As all of us here and all of us watching, we all play video games. We all love esports. Yeah. But you should have just stayed under, I think, until it all fully blows over. Look at people like Dr. Disrespect who go MIA, nothing on Twitter, nothing. And you did start that, but then you came back. And I think the play would just be play low, wait for the officials, wait for the investigation, and then you're good. If it goes in your favor, come back.
It sucks because like it's a situation where unfortunately women often get taken advantage of, right? And to have an accusation like that, it's very severe for both parties, both the victim and the person being accused. And seeing him still break down, seeing that human element, it's hard to not pity him, but at the same time, it's like, hey, like, you kind of got you put yourself in that situation, like, in a way, right? So it's like until things blow over, like you can't be showing your face up yet, right?
Especially
You gotta
If
trust your lawyer, dude.
Yeah, I mean, especially though the fact that he wouldn't cooperate with Riot. I mean, you
Yeah,
don't help yourself there. The fact you wouldn't
like
cooperate with the investigation, you can't blame people for still not trusting you because you caught a 6 month ban because you wouldn't cooperate with Riot, so they've deemed you guilty. I understand your lawyers may have told you different, but you could at least keep them in the loop if you want to come back to competitive play, I think.
yeah, like and the fact that you didn't cooperate with the investigation of Riot, it's not a good thing. You know what? I gotta cut this episode short because we're gonna talk over our time limit. Dude, talking Valorant has always been fun with you, Scooter. Uh, can't wait for the next episode, guys. If you like what you're hearing today, please subscribe and leave a comment if you want to hear more. Tell us how we're doing. That'd be awesome. This has been the first episode of Re-Frag. There'll be plenty more to come. Check it out, guys.
Yeah, we're excited to bring you this content. If you want to stay up to date with everything that we're doing, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at the Re-Frag TV.
Bing.